Hey everybody, this is Perch. This is a longer email, so we'll try and get through it. It feels like it's trying to combine kind of two topics in one, but let's see what we got. The title here is Piracy and Laura Kinney Problem. Okay, what could these have to do together? Was she on the Marauders? That's a bad joke. Remember that brief period where it felt like Marvel felt pirates were cool, and when they pushed the Marauders, they're like, we're going to really lean into the pirate aspect of this. But the kind of the idea of pirates being super cool was about 5 years earlier. It just like the entire thing seemed off. Like somebody watched Black Sails on HBO and came up with this pitch. Anyway, let's get to his mail. It says, "Dear Reverend Dr. Perch, yeah, you know what? I actually can marry people. I did get my, I say this. I used some online service to apply and was approved to be ordained so I could marry somebody. I haven't, but and I haven't really tested this thing out. I have a feeling I was just scammed. But anyway, maybe that's where I'm getting all these porn messages from. Anyway, okay, forgive me, but this is going to get a little bit technical," says the mail. Okay, I forgive you. "I think that piracy is theft. Unless you are talking about a long out-of-print issue that hasn't been uploaded to a subscription site, I cannot think of an ethical excuse to do it. However, comic publishers are inviting piracy with their privacy strategies." Yeah, I more or less agree with all that. I mean, I do think people weirdly justify piracy to themselves in increasingly kind of weak ways. But look, you can say you people bad, but you're not going to go and arrest them. You're not going to go find them. It is impossible to stop it. So from a business perspective, you can either sit there and bitch and just wish that everyone would magically Thanos snap into jail who's pirating books, or you can actually start to figure out what the solution to this is as a business. And, the pricing and distribution strategies at the publishers are inviting it. Let alone, and I've said this in other videos, so I won't go on this rant here. The digital platforms, it is absolutely easier to read comics on one of the sites. It's organized better, it's filtered better, it shows up better, and it can load faster on your mobile devices than the official DC and Marvel site that you pay for. That's just baffling. There's no excuse for that. And that's with these pirate sites having just ads everywhere that are annoying as fuck. But anyway, that's a major problem. And they should be embarrassed. The people in charge of those groups should be humiliated. It's not like being official means you have to have a subpar experience, because the, Shonen Jump experience, no problem. That thing loads just fine, reads good. But for some reason, Marvel feels like I'm still getting an AOL disc in the mail in order to access it. Anyway, it says, "As you correctly noted, comics are grossly overpriced on a per unit basis. Had comic pricing risen with inflation over the last 50 years, then they would cost around $3 per copy. Comics are charging a 40% premium over the halcyon spinner rack days, and I doubt that anyone feels like they are getting a 40% more premium product. But in my mind, this is not the worst pricing problems that comics have. The more severe issues is the aggregate cost of following Marvel or DC comics. Everyone knows that the price of an issue of Uncanny X-Men is not $5. There are two factors that increase that price. Number one, no single issue tells a complete story anymore. The actual price for a 6-issue story arc is closer to $30, which is easily one of the most expensive forms of mass entertainment. By the way, I brought this up at one point in the past, and I got two bullshit answers from an editor at Marvel. The first one was, well, we do one and done issues, but then you guys don't support them. And it's like, okay, jackass, you're putting out the product. You know damn well it doesn't work that way. You put one and done issues out, but those stories are more often than not inconsequential. They're built to not matter. They often have fill-in artists on them. And if you take something like Fantastic Four or Hickman's X-Men when he first launched it, both of which were doing one and done issues, the original Ryan North run. I'm going to keep saying Peter North because that is funny, but Ryan North run. yeah, it's a one and done issue, but you put it into your pull box. The entire business model is for you to keep collecting it. It is not like, hey, you can buy issue 1 and then come back for issue 5 and then maybe dip into issue 9. Nobody is doing that. And you don't sell the comic, market it, publish it, distribute it, make it simple for the comic shop. You don't do any of those things. So people are not picking and choosing. So stop playing stupid. And the other thing is, I get well, you don't have to buy the full arc. We recap what's happened at the beginning of the comic, which is even more bullshit. What do you think? People are like, okay, it's a 6-issue story arc here, and I'm just going to pick up issue 5 and start there because thankfully Marvel put a paragraph summary of what's going on the first page, so therefore I don't need to read the first 4 issues. Look, if that was true, that would be the most damning statement to your comics there could possibly be. Anyway. All right, sorry, but I'm back to this mail. I'm doing a bad job here. Number 2. That was just number 1. Here's number 2 of the mail. The more significant problem is that even that $30 per story cost does not come close to expressing the true cost. When Tom Brevoort relaunched the X-Men line, it launched with 9 monthly titles. Some, but not all of those titles, are required to follow Uncanny X-Men well. I think that's true. Again, people read comics and they want to get into the depths of the story. They're not just reading casually. If they were, they would be watching YouTube videos or, they'd be doing less engaging entertainment. But, comics are meant to read, explore, get into the depths. Everybody knows this too. That's why, you have the lore and the continuity and all these things. It's part of your bread and butter as a comic. And so this idea of like, well, you could just read one. Yeah, you could, but you won't because you're spreading this line out across everything and you're cross-promoting inside the book. So you damn well you're trying to get more money than that. Anyway. So the true cost is as much as $50 per month with a likely minimum commitment of 6 months or $324 per arc. That is before you bought a single title from the Avengers line, Fantastic Four, anything from DC or Image. A little bit exaggerated, but your point holds up. Mr. Brevoort would likely counter that all 9 From the Ashes titles are not necessary, but that makes the problem worse. It makes the pricing opaque. If I read an intriguing tweet from Gail Simone, read and enjoy an issue from Uncanny X-Men, that is a fictional scenario you just described with the intriguing part. Anyway, so I'm kidding. Then I'm committing to spend up to $324 without really knowing what the price actually is. But it gets worse. Marvel never promised that the 9 From the Ashes titles were the ceiling on the X-Men line. While some have been canceled, others have been introduced. So the cost of following just the X-Men story can always go up at any time. Again, none of the guarantees you with an appearance by Spider-Man or the Hulk. That costs even more. Which leads me to Laura Kinney Sabretooth comic. Laura Kinney Sabretooth was originally promoted as just Sabretooth, and it's part of this new Age of Revelation mix-up that they're doing. Event. Mix it. Mix-up. I'm going to go with that word. But anyway, it's Sabretooth, and it's Laura Kinney who is the Sabretooth. So it's Laura Kinney Sabretooth. Anyway. All right, back to mail. No one on Earth actually wants a Laura Kinney X-23 Wolverine Sabretooth comic. No, some people do. The problem is a lot of the people who do and make the most noise about it conveniently will also say things, and I'm not making this up, of, yeah, that is what, Laura Kinney is the real Wolverine. That is Wolverine. She is Wolverine. I won't buy the comic because Disney supports Israel. By the way, that wasn't a fictional statement. There was not just one tweet, but a lot on both Blue Sky and Twitter with people bragging about how they pirate the comics. They're demanding the comics are a certain way, but firmly stating they will not buy the comics because Disney supports Israel, #Free Palestine. And you're like, what in the hell? Like, what? That just blows it literally blows my mind. Literally, it blows my mind. I've got blood all over the car right now. Anyway, so I'm kidding. All right. Okay, so no one wants a Laura Kinney comic. Yeah, some people do. They just, a lot of them don't pay for it. She has been around for 22 years. Yeah, that's pretty shocking, isn't it? She has been around for 22 years. She has led 7 different series under 3 different superhero identities. They last an average of just over 12 issues. By comparison, Perennial punchline Hawkman has also led 7 series, has been around 61, and averages a comparatively astronomical 25 issues. We're now comparing Laura Kinney with Hawkman. Okay. You only launch one of these characters as a de facto price increase on their main line. Given that the current demand of X-Men comics is soft, is it reasonable to assume that the demand curve for the X-Men line is fairly elastic? Yeah, I mean, elastic to the point of a wet noodle, but yes. A price increase of any kind will decrease demand for the line as a whole. Yeah, I mean, look, if you start bumping the comics up to $5.99, you're going to get a 15 to 20% drop just immediately, which will then evaporate your price increase, which will lead to another price increase. But whatever. Which brings us back to Piracy. The rationalization is that these readers are unbundling the X-Men or some other line and choosing which pieces they support. They are basically giving themselves an ad hoc discount. Which titles they choose to quote unquote support and which they don't is less interesting than the signal back to the publishers that their line as a whole is massively overpriced. There's no end. The guy just dropped the mic and walked off. That's it. That's the mail. So first of all, well formulated mail. It took a long time to get through it because it was long, but it was worth doing because it was a good mail. All these things, by the way, this is the problem with Piracy, and I'll do a video at another time about Laura Kinney. I mean, look, for what it's worth, as a teaser for that, I think you can absolutely make a comic about Laura Kinney that people would care about. I think it's possible. But you can't do it by, well, I'll say that for the other video. I think it's a very easy way to make Laura Kinney a sellable book. The character has a lot of interesting aspects to it. But you can't, you should lean into the interesting parts and not the parts that are going to turn off readers, or at least encourage a one-time read or a casual read and nothing more. But we'll get to that later. In terms of Piracy, I mean, look, price is a problem. And I think, we can talk all we want about, hey, there's been inflation and, art costs money and, a creator should be paid more. I've done those videos. Creators should be paid more. That is a problem, but you're not going to solve it through price increases. You're going to solve it through getting comics in more places, which will lead to more people picking up comics, which will lead to the next generation of people becoming lifelong comic readers, because comics, when done properly, become something that's sticky. It's something that people will embrace and love for the rest of their life. And so you're investing in a long-term customer, somebody who's over their life going to give you $10, $20, $30,000 of money on a title. I mean, what's weird to me is that in software and in lots of other parts, everything from insurance to medical, you've got a lot of companies that are building, raising money and building their entire value on the concept of subscription, software as a service, recurring billing. Amazon is pushing really hard right now to get more things into that recurring billing. We know you need toilet paper on a regular basis. So when you buy it, just click this button. We'll send you toilet paper every 6 months. You don't need to, or more, depending on how much you shit. But anyway, we'll just do this for you and make it nice and easy. Everybody's trying to lean into this model because they know two things. If they can get you as a customer and make it convenient, then you won't go anywhere else. You'll just always keep giving them your money, even when you lose interest in something. Now, toilet paper is a bad example because hopefully you don't lose interest in that. But, but with comics, if you can get every comic shop retailer who's not a complete fool knows this. If you can get somebody into a pull box where they are subscribing every month on their pull list, then what's going to happen is comics are going to go through a bad run. You're going to get your Chuck Austin run, or you're going to get something that just is not terribly exciting. And if it's already in the pull box and it's already happening, then people will just they'll weather through it. They'll keep paying until it gets to the good stuff. If you don't have somebody in a pull box kind of scenario, then the odds are they will eventually come in and there will be a bad run and they'll stop buying, and then you lose them, and then you have to put all the work in to get them again. So everybody's experimenting with this, except comics. The publishers have next to zero interest in pursuing actual subscription, actual recurring type models. The closest this comes, and by the way, I give credit where credit's due. Scott Snyder, in some of his the classes that he does, is really aggressively preaching the concept of cliffhangers and polls for the next issue, and that as a writer, that's what he can do. That's what he should be doing. So he's right to push that. But beyond that, I see almost no effort in this zone. There's no pricing strategies. There's no, like, fuck, instead of going in on the buy a ton of the first issue of a comic for a variant cover, why not do price incentives that, like, hey, as a retailer, if you commit to buying all 12 issues this year of this comic, if you're at this level, pricing tiers, incentive plans, that's what these things are. If you commit to doing that, then we, the publisher, will basically give you that 12th month free. You buy 11 comics, you get the 12th one free as a retailer. You can, it's just free money for you. But basically, we want you to commit to us. Why not more programs like that? You need more programs where you are incenting the retailer to think long term and think, it's a recurring business that they can then pass along to their consumers. But I go. Why am I going down this path? And the mail is about piracy, because absolutely all of these things lead to piracy. If you take away the urgency, if you take away a feeling of I've got to buy this, if you give people barriers like, hey, it's going to cost $300+ to get this arc, they're going to pirate. And when the pirate sites are easy, more convenient to use, they're not going to come back. I mean, why would you? You basically look at the hole that comics have dug themselves into, which is, hey, we would like you to pay what feels like an excessive amount of money, and it isn't transparent. The writer was 100% right, where, you will be spending somewhere between $50 and $300 to get this full story, but you're not really going to know until you're committed and into it. And you're going to have to drive to a local comic shop. And maybe you were lucky, what Mark, when I interviewed him, was like, I've got 3 within like a 10-block radius. That's awesome, man. But that's less than 2% of the market. So you're talking about, you gotta get somebody to fill up the car with gas, drive over to a comic shop, go in there, buy the comic, take it home, have the additional, fees of bagging a board, whatever else is going on there, pay the, get $50 to $300 for an arc, read it, carefully put it back, find a place to store it, get yelled at by your wife about why you have so many fucking comics laying around. Or you go to your tablet, you go to a website, you click on it, comic comes up, you read it on the toilet, or the couch or the bed or outside on wherever you happen to be on the bus. And while you're driving, I don't know, no judgment. And then if the arc sucks, you dip, you go find something else, and you can go through it. Once you build that habit of just going online and pirating this stuff, why in the world would you ever go back to that world of paying a high dollar amount and all that other bullshit to get your comics? Why? You wouldn't. And that's the problem, because there's plenty of people who know it's stealing. They know it's wrong. They like comic artists. They like comics. They are supporters. And yet, you have made it really hard for them to just, to just enjoy their craft. You made it excessively hard. And when you do that and you lose them, it is now 3 times harder to get them back, because you've got to convince them to put up with all that other bullshit. And they won't do it. I mean, it's a problem. It's a major, major problem. Thanks for listening.